Ladies and gentlemen, this is Eddie Marcus again. Here I am on this Sunday morning, 1 year older than I was the last time I spoke with you. Today I think I've got some good information, really nothing new, but perhaps put together in such a way that makes it appear more approachable, acceptable, and more befitting its purpose. As spokesman and advocate for basic human rights, I'm concerned about those rights that are birth rights, those rights that are very essential for what we call human beings. And so, having spent a lot of time doing these kinds of things for you for many years, and about ready to retire now, you've heard me say retiring several times, and each time the Spirit takes me in such a way that I find myself coming back to address perhaps something that has been said during a period of time, but definitely nothing new. But, you know, speaking back for years, there have been things that I've said that perhaps you won't even get a chance because it's buried so far back in history. So just for the moment in time, I'd like to share with you my subject, and I'm not going to speak to you, I'm just going to refer to notes. My subject is America's God, the Love of Money. Now, I had a question with that, even for myself. And I thought perhaps it would be better to say the fall of America, or should I say the downfall of America, is the love of its money. And some people would associate that with capitalism. It doesn't matter. But they say that my fussing makes people shut me off. I was talking to a young lady the other day in reference to something that she had heard. She says, I fuss too much. And she says, if people get upset with my fussing, they'll just get up and turn the switch off. So my fussing makes people turn the switch off. I say that's not true. I say they shut me off because they don't want to hear what I'm saying. For instance, Donald Trump last night was at a CPAC. And I guarantee you everything that Donald Trump was saying, there were people there going crazy excited about it, shouting all about it, how wonderful it is, even though they knew he was just lying, flat out lying. There is no way any people could be ignorant enough, stupid enough, downtrodden enough to listen to a lie over and over and call it the truth. They didn't care. They were celebrating the fact that he said it. Now, there were those, I'm sure, who turned on and saw C-SPAN and heard Donald Trump say a few words and they shut it off. They didn't want to hear it. They shut it off because they didn't want to hear it. So when people say they shut me off because I'm fussing, no, they're shutting me off because what I'm saying, they don't want to hear it. You know, it makes me think about people saying that, and this was a conversation that I had with a young lady the other day too. You know, talking to other people kind of open up some doors. I heard a young lady tell me the other day, she says, my dad was always fussing at me. He never said any nice things to me. Well, when they were little children, you know, all parents, if they love their kids, say some decent things to them. But as you grow up, sometimes you're sending people to a corner or just trying to stroke people or trying to keep things down. Sometimes you have to just speak the truth. And sometimes parents have to speak the truth. I heard a young lady say that when she got to be a teenager, her dad could never find a nice word to say. She said he would always put them down, say, you're not going to be anything. Blase, blase this. And you know how that story goes. Many of you have been treated that way by your parents. And the thing that set them off the most is that they would see this parent talking to other kids or teenagers, and they treated them nice, laughed and talked with them. But the children, never had the opportunity to have that experience with their father or their dad as a teenager. So they got rebellious. And some of them would say different things about how they were going to respond. Some of them say, I'm going to leave home as fast as I possibly can. And in fact, the lady that I was talking to said that's what she had to do. She left home as fast as she possibly can, mad as she could be with her dad, and everything that he was trying to tell her about. She ended up doing exactly what he had told her. But she put the blame on him because he didn't tell her he loved her when she was a teenager. He didn't stroke her right. She didn't understand that this man had been talking to her all her life. This man who was a vicious man, this man who was a wild man, this man who had been in the world and saw the world as it is. He saw men like himself who had no heart, who were just vultures out to eat young ladies up. And he saw the young ladies who were vulnerable to this vulturism. And he saw that the possibility could happen to his own teenage daughters. And he spoke to them. And as he saw that they weren't listening, that gentle talk became an angry talk. And that angry talk got mad because he saw them growing closer and closer to that point where if he couldn't make the connection now with them, that they would be lost. And so their response to that was to go out and do what they want to do, and ended up doing exactly what that father was trying to keep them from doing. Now they say, in their own understanding, if he had stroked them right, perhaps they would have been different. I take issue with that because there are many people. I know a young man who was going to a high school. This is another situation. And his father told him that if he didn't change high schools and go to the one that the father thought was more reputable, he would not give him 1 cent to go to college. And yet this young man felt that he grew up in this environment with all of his friends, his lifetime friends. Now they were in high school and had a relationship. They had visions. And just move off and go to another school was something that he could not embrace. And so he chose not to do it. But when he got out of high school, rather than go and become a thief, rather than going out robbing banks, mugging because he couldn't get what he wanted from his father, he made sure he went out and took the initiatives, and he ended up getting him a scholarship that got him through college free. He didn't have to pay a cent. Now, maybe his father thought well, my threatening him made him do something. And what he found out was that you can't keep a good person down. A person who got a goal and an ambition, I don't care what you say, you can't keep them down. They will not use you for an excuse. And so this is what I'm saying to people who say, well, my father made me do this. If he had treated me nice, I can't wait, I gotta get out of the house. Well, you might just be running into that big hell hole that your father is telling you about. So that has some significance as I prep this message that I'm trying to stage for you about America's downfall is a love of money. My old man, and before I go there, I want to say something else that this lady told me as I look at this note. She said that some say that your message is confusing. And when she said that, if you notice, I've said most of the time when I speak, I talk about God. And when they hear me speak about God, it's not the same as when they hear their normal people speak about God. Because most people speak about God, especially preachers and elders and bishops, as it were. They talk about saving your soul. They talk about getting your soul into heaven to live eternally. I don't knock that mission. That was not the mission that I was given. So I guess what they're saying is that this is what they have accepted as being a message from God. However, when I come to them, I don't come to them talking about going to heaven. I'm talking to them about how God has equipped them and the earth and all of the facilities made available so they don't have to worry about going to heaven. They have the true power to create heaven right there in their midst. Now this, I guess, can be quite confusing to some people. Creating heaven? How in the world can that possibly be done in the kind of situation that we experience every day? But ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are still here, in the 70s, I believed that I could change America. I believed I could change America to be beautiful on earth. America as in heaven. Now for 40 years I've not given up without 1 ounce of support that you can measure. Now when I say not 1 ounce, that doesn't mean that there haven't been anybody. Sure, over this period of time there have been people who said, come over here and be a part of our organization. There's a group I used to associate myself with, and still do, called Down for the Cause. There's another group that's called Up and Out of Poverty. There's another group called Welfare Rights. And then I was associated temporarily with the group about the celebrations of Dr. King's holiday. That didn't last too long. So we know that I'm still out there associating myself. But and let me say again, there were individuals, I would like to just mention their name because I'm so grateful, but at the same time it might mark them. So I won't call their names. There was a young lady who volunteered to work with me, and if you hear me, young lady, you know who you are. There was a young man who worked with me for a while out of New York City. I won't call your name, but if you hear me, you know who you are. And I want to tell you that I thank you so much, because out of all of those that I have, you were there. And ladies and gentlemen, there were even additional people. When I traveled across the country speaking, there were those who would put some coins together and say, here's some gas money for you to travel to the next location. There were some who say, come and stay at my house while you're here in town. I just want to take you out of the streets so you can know that the love that we understand about God can be shared with you. So you're there. But for the most part, no one has championed this kind of thing. None at all. Now, when I was out there, there was another person I'm sure was thinking about being running for office or thinking of making America great. And I'm sure he thought about it for a minute here and there. But he wasn't thinking about making America great in the sense of heaven on earth. The idea had to be hell on earth. And this one received all kinds of support. The media could not turn away. You know, and what we see today is that ones have supporters who got to hate God, and they got to love Satan. They got to hate truth because evidence before our eyes, they love lies. They got to hate freedom because they love bondage. Yet, it took all America to receive and accept who I'm speaking of. It is the result of what seeds America planted. It is the result of what America has been sowing. To wit, God gave America a warning and a choice. 1979, God needed a voice, and he found that voice in a young Veterans Benefits counselor located in Chicago, Illinois. Immediately, this one was attacked by Satan. His Eve deserted him. For the next 2 years, he joined the U.S. Navy until the lack of godliness was reflected in their president, Ronald Reagan. He saw the evil in social relationships at its highest order, which was marriage. And now he saw it in government. He was taught, and taught well, and sent into the wilderness of America to advise them, to advise America, not just church people, to advise America that she was on the path to hell. Later on, God offered America an olive branch. As in heaven, so on earth. And this message was spread on street corners. It was spread in churches. It was spread in pamphlets and brochures, on radio programs, on cable access, DVDs, CDs, cassettes, and you name it. Also, as an office seeker for the mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota, as a write-in, for no funds or public recognition is given or made available for God or anybody else who sought the office without money. But that didn't stop him. He ran as a write-in. He sought the office as governor of the state of Minnesota for twice. Champion as in heaven, so on earth. Everybody was dumbfounded to that. No one wanted to hear it. It was seen as a joke. He was seen as a joke. He ran 2 times as U.S. Senator from the state of Minnesota, again perceived as a joke. 3 times as U.S. President, again a joke. Now, 2016, evil was put on the throne. Now, remember, 79 to 2016, God had sent a representative out to share with you, as in heaven, so on earth, rejected at every level, from the poorest to the richest. Nobody embraced it. But now, 2016, the trick is played. 2 representations of evil, or should I say evil, represented by 2 individuals, representing 2 political parties, were put before the American people as choice. And the nation went wild. Free, unlimited publicity for the most evil of any candidate ever heard of. And America ended up voting for what they call the lesser of 2 evils, a Republican who has proven to be, if he's not out of the pit of hell, that spirit is all infested in it. You haven't heard one good thing come out of that mouth or action, except in the denial of the process for what God has had. Now, all people say that they need certain essentials for survival, and they want them, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or otherwise. The history of America is that all people have always wanted this, but they never received it. Some have said this is why the American people chose evil this time, because all of this which presented itself as being not evil hadn't worked. The religious community talking about God hadn't made anything any different. And so the public didn't want to hear any of that. They decided we will choose evil. And decided not only will they choose evil, they were going to support evil. That if they got nothing else from anybody else, stick on the side of evil. And then they would probably get something. And if joining evil means that they had to kill everybody else that weren't on the support of evil, it was okay with them. The president said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Today, he don't have to shoot anybody on Fifth Avenue. He can get the senators like Graham and other ones who represent so much in the political party, who will do the shooting for him and say it was justified. And still, ladies and gentlemen, the nation is going where there is storms and floods and hurricanes and sinkholes and muds and tornadoes and earthquakes And the people are suffering and suffering, and for 3 years the lies have been so rampant until right now the polls indicate that half of America has accepted the devil, have accepted evil. And for those of you who might be offended because I call Trump the devil, then I will say maybe I'm referring to the evil that is engrossed within Trump. And that is what he is expressing. And so, doing so, he appears to be the devil. Now, here's what gets me. When I spoke to you about God then, as I do today, God's plan was simple. Everybody on earth required these essentials for survival. And so God's plan was to put everybody to work in a career of their own choosing. You wouldn't be working, you wouldn't supposed to be dancing and ending up playing baseball. You wouldn't end up supporting things that you were not in love with. You would definitely be on track. So by putting everybody to work, when it came down to health care, there would be enough people engaged in the process of everything that is involved in health care that anybody in America would have the absolute best health care America could produce and present. Oh, that God was fine. That God was so magnificent. By putting everybody to work, there would be enough people engaged in that process that when it came down to the educational institutions and everything that is involved in that process, there would be enough people involved in it, engaged in it, that anybody and everybody in America that wanted to further their education would have access to it unlimited and unrestricted. Oh, I'm not talking about myself, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about God, the God I believe in, which is not money. That everybody, this God was so magnificent in his plans that when it came down to other things that are essential for survival, like food, clothing, and shelter, putting everybody to work, there are enough people engaged in that process that they would create enough of all of these goods and services that not one individual in America would be denied any of things, not even short. I mean, that's God's way of doing stuff. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Having engaged these people in this process, all of the goods and services that we are aware of, going to the moon, going to Mars, flying cars, flying boats, well, you can stop flying boats and let's call them submarines, whatever you want to call them. All of the abilities and skills that God allows us to use, expressing the gifts of God through us, was made available because God set up a process that would do that. And by doing that, all of the people that's engaged in the process played a part in creating all of the goods and services that exist. And by doing that, they had ownership in everything that existed, ladies and gentlemen, and it did not need money. But that old devil had tricked you. That old devil had tricked you, making you think that you needed money. That even those things that you had created, even those things that belong to you, you did not have the right to enjoy them unless you got some money and paid for what you made. And went in debt. Now you own yourself to whoever's running that money. Evil. And you couldn't do nothing. You couldn't drive a car. You couldn't do anything without that money. That's how you were tricked. And that trick has been so successful that here in 2019, you got half of the nation, let me just say that, it's say about 90% of the Republican Party, people who used to call themselves good people, people who try to teach their kids about goodness, now have turned their back on it because they're getting an indication that if they get the Supreme Court stacked, if they get the justice system stacked, if they get politicians in the places where evil is, then all they got to do is stick on the side of evil and they don't have to worry about anything else. And those of you who are not, they can treat you like they did the Jews over in Germany. They can treat you like the blacks were treated in Africa. They can treat you like certain Indians were treated over in India or Pakistan. They could treat you like you don't exist. They would treat you like you don't exist. They would treat you, to bring it a little bit home closer, like Russians are treated by Putin. They would treat you like North Koreans are treated by And this man wants to be the king of the world, so he would treat you 1,000 times worse than any of them. But ladies and gentlemen, my message to you today is this, and I hope and pray that it is not death that keeps me from saying anything else, but just that I have given it all to you and there's nothing else I can say. Is this, ladies and gentlemen, you created the situation that you're in. You can't blame anybody. And don't expect a miracle. God is not going to help you out if you don't want it. Some of you believe that there was a flood where everybody was walking around in the world just like you are. In your power, in your wealth, in your righteousness. And when the flood came, it only found 3 or 4 people who were worth saving. And who knows, perhaps they weren't even worth, they just happened to be in the right place at the right time, sticking to somebody who was. And so, ladies and gentlemen, don't blame God. Somebody say, the world is going to come to an end. Yes, but what that signifies is that the world has gone so wrong, so far away from righteousness, so far away from God, till there's nothing else to do but destroy it. So you know we're on that path, right? We are not doing anything good, right? And let me say this, you Democrats, your voice sounds really nice when you get through listening to some Republicans. But I want you to know that God feels the same way about you that he feels about the Republicans. Why? Because God made every individual. God cares about every individual. He's not like that father that's cussing people out. He did set up a plan that you should reap what you sow. That's no trick. That's you doing. But he cares about you all. And what was fit for the beginning is fit for the end. You can change this thing around. If you can recognize the evil that you have attached yourself to and decide to make a change and do the right thing, but the right thing is not what the Democrats are talking about. The Democrats are saying what they've always said. They're saying basically the same things that the Republicans are saying. The only difference is the Democrats want to be a little bit more liberal. They want to spread their situation out to a little bit more inclusive of others. But you're leaving others out. There's always been poverty in America. There's always been people homeless. Always been people jobless. Always people without enough food to survive. Always been people who were lacking in education and caught up in that crap. Always people who could not get health care. And you, as a Democrat, didn't fix that. You allowed that to exist. You played a part in exactly what is going on today. And don't you think that you are worthy? Oh, so they might put you in. I think that might happen. But that doesn't say anything about you. You have turned your back on God just like Trump. What am I saying? You, the Democrats, have turned your back on God just like Trump. What am I saying? You, the church, have turned your back on God just like Trump. And so none of you got anything to boast about and brag about. The only thing I can say to you is this, is God's plan. And many of you who don't believe in God, I want you to know I will never give myself the credit for having this beautiful plan. You would think I was a narcissist. And I don't want to be that, especially when they talk about what Trump is. Now, ladies and gentlemen, something as beautiful as that, where every last one of your children can smile, don't have to worry about education, debt, don't have to worry about getting sick, you can't pay bills, don't have to worry about being homeless, don't have to worry about a husband or a wife who can't put up with them and they suffer, don't have to worry about any of those things. No, my friend, that ain't from me, that's from God. And in order for you to receive it, you got to choose it. It's not coming any other way. I got no problem biting my tongue about that. And killing me won't change that. And just because I said it won't make it true. So I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I have said this to you over 1,000 times. And I'm tired. So what I plan to do is turn off all of this news stuff. I don't want to hear a word come out of a Democrat's mouth. I don't want to hear a word come out of Republicans' mouth. And I don't want to hear a word come out of a preacher's mouth talking about this junk. You are all on the path straight to hell. And I don't want to hear any more of it. I don't need any more convincing. I know it for a solid fact. So if I got a little bit of time left, let me breathe. Because you guys got some stench on you until, ladies and gentlemen, until something happens that's positive. May God be your blessing. I am and have been Eddie Marcus, spokesman of God's love for you that you have rejected, but it is still out there. All you got to do is reach out and touch. Bye-bye.